crowd. We shall not start before it's time. Are we streaming? Hello, everybody.
Does my mic work this week?
Out there, TV land.
Are you sure? Is this thing on?
Testing.
Okay, I will call Thursday, September 19th, 2019, regular Board of Selectmen's meeting to order at 7 p.m. We have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll move right on to public comments, limited to 3 minutes. If you'll give us your name with that.
Barbara Wheeler, Heritage Village. At the Board of Selectmen meeting on September 5th, two very serious Southbury senior services issues were reported and discussed. There has been and continues to be a shortage of bus drivers, causing seniors not to get transportation to out-of-town medical appointments, and the membership has been declining at the senior center. I believe Southbury should have services for their seniors, who are more than 1/3 of the population, that are comparable to our education system and our exceptional library. Years ago, I went to the center with my mom. It was an interesting place and there was a helpful social worker there. Sadly, that position has been left vacant. The center used to help some seniors with their taxes, and I don't believe that that has happened in the past 3 years, forcing Southbury seniors to go elsewhere or to pay for the service. I decided to investigate what was going on at senior services. First, I went to my friends who are or were heavy users of the senior center. Nearly to a person, they were not pleased, except with the exercise classes. They expressed it was no longer a welcoming environment and activities are limited. Local senior center offerings are listed in newspapers, and even smaller towns seem to have more diverse offerings. Many seniors report they are going elsewhere. Finally, I visited the center and found drab, worn surroundings and no comfortable places to sit. There is a monthly bulletin with lots of blank space. It seems to me there was a lot less activities than I remember. I did discover there are trips available from a travel agency, but never advertised. The other towns publicly offer trips in the newspaper. However, one of the most upsetting things was the broken sidewalk at the front door. Not only is it dangerous for all people entering and leaving the building, but a lawsuit waiting to happen. I hope that this gets fixed ASAP, but it is sad that I had to report it. Southbury is a wonderful town, and seniors pay taxes too. And I also will be sending a photo that I took 20 minutes ago from the entrance of the Senior Services Center.
Any other public comment?
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rich Boritz. I live in Heritage Village, and I am the Democratic candidate for First Selectman. Tonight, I want to share some thoughts about happiness. After all, it is one of America's founding principles. We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We know what families need to be happy. They need affordable homes, sufficient food, adequate health care, access to recreation, support in times of trouble, I will highlight just a few of my thoughts on how to improve the lives of our seniors, our youth, and preserve the character of Southbury by creating a more sustainable community. Many seniors are struggling with money today, some having to decide whether to skip a meal or their medication on any given day. Some can't comfortably heat their homes. One way we can help is to make sure that they minimize the cost of their housing. We have an affordable housing shortage here in Southbury that needs to be addressed. I am glad to see that the Strategic Plan Commission has recently released recommendations on how the town can improve that situation. I plan to use their guidance to begin to alleviate that problem. Likewise, children need our support to develop healthy lifestyles. They need alternatives to drugs and alcohol. By providing a safe and healthy environment for our youth, the town can encourage all children, regardless of their abilities, to participate in sports, the arts, and other recreational activities. These activities also have an added benefit of decreasing their isolation and alienation. That's why I support establishing a community center right here in Southbury, one built with a public-private partnership to make it affordable to our taxpayers. Now, the next generation deserves to find Southbury's environment in the same or better condition than we found it when we came here. Our parks, open space, and built-up areas all need their own kind of special attention. I intend to review the condition of the parks, improve access to our open space, and make our developed areas more energy efficient and sustainable. We have to do a better job. Now, these are worthwhile goals, not just for Southbury, but for any community. To learn more about how I...
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other public
Thanks, Rich.
comment? Any other public comment?
My name is Joan von Hardenberg, 1430 Jeremy Swamp Road. I'm here to talk about something that's insignificant maybe to some people, but it's been bothering me, so I decided to bring it up. I do not live, my address is not 1430 Jeremy Swamp Road Extension. It's not a piece of road that has been extended from another road. If anything has been extended, it's the other part of the road that's been straightened and widened and paved. So if you would please refer to where I live as the unpaved portion of Jeremy Swamp Road, or the gravel portion of Jeremy Swamp Road, but please, not an extension. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on. Announcements and correspondence. You have in your report, reports from departments. Any questions? We'll move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It carries. Minutes of September 5th, 2019, regular meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It carries. Next up is charter explanatory text. And I think this is what we're looking at for the explanatory text that will be on the ballot to explain the questions. Mike?
So I had a question. I thought, based on the conversation we had at our last meeting, and I'm thrilled that we still can. I mean, I was concerned based on what the town clerk had told us that the ship had sailed. Do we still have the ability to correct? Okay,
Yeah. that's-
great.
Yeah. that's my understanding.
Good to know.
Where does it show up, this explanatory text? Is it on
It'll be a
the
two-page.
ballot sheet,
Back of the ballot.
back of it?
But
I think
we
it
can
gets
also put
posted,
this
too.
out.
Yeah, and it'll
I
be
think it
posted.
gets like posted like in the polling stations and,
Right,
you know,
right,
the
right. Along
town
with being
clerk's
on the ballot.
office and all that.
Good. Good with that.
Okay. I think, do we need a motion to, or any other question on it? Want to entertain a motion to accept the proposed explanatory text for question 2 and question 3?
So moved.
Second?
Made and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? And it carries. EMS committee? I think, some stuff, okay, EMS committee, here we go. We have a draft that has been worked up. George, you had some other input to that recently?
Yeah, I sent out a revision just around 5 o'clock today.
Yeah. So George sent the draft, I think, yesterday initially, and then 3 more since then.
been
And I
busy.
appreciate that look. I had a quick chance to look at it, one of the earlier drafts. But I certainly think, you know, we should continue that discussion so we all have a chance to actually review it, and at our next meeting, make a final decision on that, for sure. I did have, while we're on, if everybody's, you know, certainly okay with that, I did have a question, though, just regarding the committee. We all received an email from the head of SAA, and you know, one thing I'm wondering for the first selectman is, you know, and as the liaison to the committee, with all the hubbub that's been going on in town, I think it would be worthwhile if you would attend the December EMS committee meeting, to have a conversation with the members themselves directly. I think they're interested in hearing your thoughts and criticism. So if that's feasible, you have 2 months to think,
Take a look
3
at
months to think about it. But I think that'd be a worthwhile endeavor as we look, you know, as we try to look forward and move forward. So,
Okay, so you want to table this till the next?
yeah,
meeting?
I think the restructuring of the
Jason?
EMS committee.
Before we table it, just because I had a couple of comments that perhaps we could like think about, you know, before the next time. I didn't have a chance to review the one that was sent at 5 o'clock today, so this is based on. This is the 5, yeah.
There's one at 5:58, I guess.
And really, there was one substantive comment. As to the representatives of voting membership, I think we need to decide what we want the qualifications to be. It wasn't clear to me, the way this is written is it says we want to encourage certain types of people to apply. Then it says we want one person to be a member of the senior population, and that person doesn't need to have a medical background, which would seem to indicate that we're requiring a medical background for the others, but it doesn't say that. So I just think we need to,
Clean it up.
one, discuss whether that medical backgrounds are an absolute requirement, or whether it's something we want to
It wasn't
encourage
my-
and hope for.
I
So-
think I started that way, thinking that they all should have medical background, but then I went back and I read some of the stuff from Fitch, and he made it pretty clear that it didn't need to be, like you could get people like, you know, lawyers and professionals in other areas to sit on the committee, and that, he thought that was beneficial, so I should have changed that wording on medical background, and I did not. I'll clean that up.
I think that makes, I think that makes sense. I think it's helpful to have people from different backgrounds and whatnot, but we should look at that.
Question came up
Language.
about whether we should have 5 or 7. I think, Mike, your last revision had 7 with 3 alternates, and in talking to a couple of people, they thought it would be hard to find 7, and maybe 5 was more appropriate, but that's another question that you might want to consider.
Yeah, and my thought on that, one, you know, and it's you know, I think it's one of the challenges we have with our committees and commissions in general is the inconsistency in terms of the structure of all those and the terms of those, especially when compared to the Board of Selectmen. But I also do think part of it is the numbers. The reason why I went with the larger number was I don't think we'll have a struggle getting them, but I think the challenge sometimes, now this committee historically has only met 4 times a year, so, and maybe it will increase. That's something, you know, that we can talk about in here, like other commissions meet a little more frequently. I think having more makes it easier to find a quorum potentially if, you know, gives more people the chance to get there. and gives you the opportunity. So, but again, I think I haven't had a chance to do more than a cursory reading of certainly the most recent draft, so I'd like to, you know, I'd want to postpone the rest of the discussion, so we can all come in with comments at our next meeting and get to a point where we can, as we almost did with the charter, develop a final working draft.
So can we
for us
put
to vote.
the concerns, the questions, do you want it to go to Mike and George?
That makes sense. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, that was my most substantive, I just wanted to mention that so we could think about it as a group, what we want the qualifications to be, rather than
Yeah.
coming into it.
I wrote that section like over 3 different
Yeah. So-
sessions, and it doesn't hang together very well. It'll have to be revised.
All right, so George, you can.
So I'll come back, what George and I talked about before, I'll come back with, you know, I'll certainly take that into account. I'll send a red line, you know, I'll look at it send a red line back to the, you know, to George, and then before our next meeting, it'll be on the agenda, so we can then come in, have a chance to review it with a few days' notice in advance, certainly, so we can, because we're close, I think. You know, I think
Okay,
it's really
good,
close.
good to hear.
So we good?
Motion to postpone to the next meeting?
Postpone?
Second.
Made and seconded, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions, it carries. Okay, Emergency Management Director, we had some input from our labor attorney on it. Jason, you've been talking about another concern, and we'll get that.
Yeah, so the question I've asked is, the stipend issue as it relates to a full-time employee. The memo we got from Bill Ryan doesn't address that issue. So I spoke to Jeff this morning about talking to Bill. I talked to Bill this afternoon, and he's gonna look into that over the next week or so.
So we should have that, and we'll get that out with that. Okay,
Can I make a comment on that?
sure.
I went up to the Region 5 Emergency Management Equipment Extravaganza up in Morris. It was about 2 weeks ago, and I spoke with John Field, who is Region 5's Demas representative. I guess he's the head for Region 5 of all the emergency management stuff that they do. And I also talked to some other folks there, some fire marshals. I mean, this was a gathering of people that were pretty intensely involved with emergencies and crises and recovery. You know, this was a good group to talk to. And I came away with the consensus, and nobody disagreed with this, that it would be good to have a full-time emergency management director in town. One of the ideas to soften the blow cost-wise would be to farm out this person's services to other communities, however, with a stipulation that if there is an emergency, they focus on Southbury first. They don't work in an emergency in Middlebury unless there's nothing going on in Southbury. But they could help with planning. I mean, they could help other towns do the planning, which is a lot of work. And maybe some of the other communities locally would be willing to sort of share some of the cost involved if that was a consideration.
Okay.
So,
All right, so we'll postpone the Emergency Management Director. Do we need a motion on that?
So moved.
Second,
I'll second it.
made a discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions, it carries.
Hey, Jeff, if I might, if I can make I want to make a motion to just add one item under unfinished business, which would just be so I can provide an update to the board on the EMS plan for the town, not the townwide EMS plan that Tim Baldwin has been working on, just because he gave me an update. He gave me an update today. I just wanted to give the public and the board a brief update on it,
Oh.
so everyone knows where
You
we're
want to
at.
do,
Yeah.
want me to just do that in reports?
Oh, I could,
Why don't we just do it then?
okay, that's
I
fine.
mean, I don't think that's.
No problem.
Add,
That works.
unless, that's okay? Everybody's okay? All right.
Remove my request.
Under new business, liability issues of current guide rail designs. We're looking for a moratorium on the, in the subdivision regulations, they spell out a specific design of a guardrail, guide rail, that does not comply with DOT crash test. We've been advised, that we should do a moratorium until they can come up with a solution to that. I think that's, we can do that. I don't think there's a lot of subdivisions coming forward right now, so there's time, but they don't want that in place for liability reasons.
Does this relate to the guardrails we were talking about during budget season? Is this
No,
the-
this has to
or is
do
this-
with the actual subdivision, and the subdivision regulations. If you go up, where's, like Stoneway and a few of the others, they're wood with wood planks. It doesn't meet DOT's crash specifications for safety. So if somebody came forward and wanted to build a new subdivision, this doesn't comply, it's with it. So they're planning is looking into a solution for that, so they need some time.
So this is not related to the post and
Completely
wire
unrelated. Completely
type
unrelated.
of, we were talking about at Siemens, like that area by the new bridge?
Right.
It was the genesis of is what, that budgeting discussion about the type of guardrail is what stimulated them to do a guide rail study, which has now stimulated this discovery.
Discovery was, our subdivision regulations don't comply with DOT
So
on
it's
this.
specific to subdivisions?
Right.
Not
If you
other?
read the,
Okay.
yeah, it's,
All right, yeah, again, we got that, we didn't get that too long ago, so,
and it's, on the it says on the subdivision regulations.
okay.
But they're asking for a moratorium on guide rails, period, aren't they?
No.
I thought, no?
Not that my understanding. We are not putting in, we are gonna have to get clarification. At this point, we're replacing any damaged current flex beam guardrails with the same in kind. We have to just replace what's there. And then we're gonna wait for planning to come up with, because we do have some two-wire guardrails, take Seaman Park, across on the riverside, it's not other places, but we have wood posts with wire rope going through it. So eventually, we have to address this and determine what we're gonna put in, on those when they're damaged. But right now, we're only doing the damaged, flex beam DOT that's already there. So, can I have a motion, resolve that the Southbury Board of Selectmen hereby concur with the Planning Commission's recommendation to place a moratorium on guide rails design found within the Town of Southbury subdivision regulation, chapter 4.12.9, until a new and approved design can be found.
I'll move that.
Have a second? Come on, Mike. Jason. Oh, okay.
He's got it.
We're gonna pass it around. The second, you second next, all right? Any discussion?
I do actually have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm not a fan of open-ended or moratoriums. Until a new and improved design can be found, doesn't put any kind of deadline or timeline or sense of urgency
Well,
around it.
if the
Is there a
subdivision
sense, do we
comes
have
in-
a sense though of how long this is going to take?
I don't know how long, but they're gonna meet and discuss that and make a recommendation. Like I said, if a subdivision comes through and it needs guide rails, I would probably look to the planning commission to come up with, you need to recommend what's gonna go in there, and I'm sure they'll move along at that point.
Anyone else have any issues with open-ended moratoriums?
Until we get this,
All right, yeah, that's just, open-ended moratoriums without any deadlines are sort of the bad part of how, the reason why sometimes local government moves so slow is that there's no sense of urgency because nobody's put a flag down in the sand saying, oh, we've got to be done by this point. So, but I have all faith in our planning commission, so, I just wanted to address it, but I'm fine, I'm fine moving it
What
forward.
happens if there's a subdivision project started and we don't have this resolved? I mean, can they start the
so I'm
project
sure
and
as
figure it
as
out
that
later?
subdivision goes through that process, it takes some time, and I think.
They have to go to
Justin,
planning. They have to go to planning.
Yeah.
They have to go to planning.
Planning would have to
Yeah.
say, okay, in lieu
We have a
of
moratorium.
we shall ask for this guide rail. And it could be anything from the Merritt Parkway style, that's DOT, to the rusted, whatever it is. So I'm sure they will pull it through that, And if we have to, have a meeting to accept it, that's what.
Yeah, and I would just ask for the record that, you know, for the record, have it state that, you know, it's the desire, certainly of me, but I hope for the rest of the Board of Selectmen, that Planning Commission, act with urgency, and report back to the Board of Selectmen, in as quick a time as possible, so the moratorium is not, never ending.
I just got a news flash from somebody in the audience that planning is indeed working on it right now, so
Who's your source, George?
I'm not telling you. I never reveal my sources.
I'm sure they are. Okay, I'll call the vote, all in favor?
All right, hold on, wait,
Oh.
Cindy, you have to recognize her, Jeff.
Cindy?
I do know that they're working with Malone and McBroom to do a total, you're here too, so to do a total study of guide rails, and I think that this is, my understanding is right, that this came out of that project that they're working. Am I correct, Rick?
Yeah, hopefully it'll be resolved by the next meeting, if not the following meeting.
That's great.
And anybody who's gonna build something has to come through planning anyway, and we'll resolve it. The group there had their survey, and one of the things on the survey said that the type of, guardrail that we expressed in, the plan of development doesn't meet federal, state, requirements. And if something happens and we force somebody to do that, there's liability, so.
Okay.
So they have, I would say, if it's okay if we kind of, my understanding is they have a sense of urgency, they're already well into the project, and this was.
Yeah, I'm fine, I'm good. Thank you.
Just to raise sort of a side issue, do we have any obligation with, how many subdivisions does this affect that this has been put up in? And do we have any responsibility with respect to those?
Just got this, so I don't know.
Right.
That's a very good question, though.
Yeah,
So we'll have to
So-
look into all that and,
good question.
see what is grandfather, we'll see. All right, I'll call the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, it carries. For Selectmen's report. Radio refresh is moving forward, we don't have any new info on that, but it is moving forward. We're
It's a
gonna be
meeting
bringing.
tomorrow, Jeff, right?
What's that?
There's a meeting tomorrow on it.
Yeah. No, it was canceled.
The meeting tomorrow is canceled?
Was canceled,
Oh, nobody told me.
it's not?
No.
I thought they said it on my
You
calendar.
go to the right source for information in this place, man.
All right. Tax abatement, next meeting, there will be a slide presentation that will be given, has been forwarded from the Board of Finance. The risk management report has come back, and it's up at planning, and they will be doing the work up there at the Planning Commission. The new fire truck has come in. It is nice. It came in, they look it over, they put tags on anything they see is not good, right, or whatever they determined, and they are sending it out back to the dealer, and they are gonna be outfitting it, and they would like to show the Board of Selectmen, when we talked about, remember the CAV system was one touch, and everything engages, and how it works, and they'd like the whole board to see a demonstration. I don't know if it could do it before the board meeting, but they would like to, when it comes back, explain how that works. And once they explain the levers and things and everything you have to do with the old versus this, it's good. It works really good. So it's a pretty good truck. So when they figure out when they can do that, maybe we'll just have I don't know if we can do a special meeting or if we could just do a tour of it. They really want us to see it. Pool engineering work, the pool, there's some engineering and work, some tests we have to do before we can move forward on that. At this time, we're looking at rough estimates of 3.5 to 5 million. But we really need to do these engineering tests before we know what path we can take, and that has to do. The EDC director position, is still at the police department, the background check being completed when they're completed. We'll go forward with that. The good news is how much FEMA came today. FEMA was in.
Yes.
And wrap-up meeting, and the number has been, and we're 1.1-ish.
So it's higher than what we were getting, huh?
That's because they added the
The
admin
70? Oh,
fee
okay, yeah.
to it, so we'll be getting that back, and I think, are they sending a check soon, Betsy?
That's what they said.
They're the government, they're here to help. So it should be coming in. HR work is moving along, they're gathering organizational charts. We've been meeting with the HR consultant and to get the SWOT analysis and the payroll analysis, and we'll have more information on that coming up. Reports from selectmen?
The
George?
Region 15 space needs study is off the list. You can eliminate that one. Road study, we didn't meet, although my street got chip sealed yesterday. It was impressive to watch. Has anyone ever watched that being done?
I watched it when they did my street.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Whose street has not been chip sealed?
Yours, Jeff? No. just kidding.
No, mine.
His has been chip sealed.
Pretty sure 172 hasn't been chip sealed.
Yeah, you're on 172.
Right.
No,
But
definitely.
they may do that.
Yeah.
They need to do something.
Yeah.
They're getting there. They're getting due.
The tax abatement recommendations came in front of the Board of Finance on Monday, and they approved them as presented, which was interesting. The comment that stuck in my head from their commentary on it was that they felt that the tax abatement for seniors was, although we didn't increase it, we maintained it because the state cut out the funding at about $212,000. So the town maintained that at our cost. But the folks on most of the folks, it sounded like, for the Board of Finance were suggesting we increase the amount of the local senior tax abatement, which is currently set at 150% of the state level. I just passed that along for consideration if anyone feels they want to consider that as an option. It got me thinking about it. It hasn't really changed in quite some time. I mean, that 150% has been there. So the number, I don't think the number has really gone up, even though has been inflation and costs go up over time. We haven't changed the number. The counter argument to that is that we already have one of the most generous tax abatement programs for seniors. I think there's only 4 towns that we could identify in the state that have a more generous program. So I throw that all out there. You can think of, but that's the one issue that came out. The other issue, well, there's another issue that wasn't really discussed, and that's what do you do with land under PA 490 on which the development rights have been sold. So let's say I've got 50 acres on PA 490, I've sold the development rights. Now we increase the PA 490 evaluation, which we can do apparently, or somebody can. What happens to that person? Now their land isn't really worth as much. I mean, what would you do with that, Justin? I think there should be a special carve-out in that provision maybe for those people. It's left as an open question in the presentation. It's not, we didn't make a suggestion other than, what do you want to do with it? So that's the other issue I think that needs to be looked at. There was an IT committee meeting, and there wasn't anything really major to report. We're focusing on ways of easing Ray out the door next August, or replacing him, I should say, when he does leave. So that's it for me.
Justin?
Just quickly to George's point, the only entities I'm aware of that have purchased development rights from people in town are the land trust.
I think the state has done a few properties on the state. The state can do that too.
So they're not people that we can really tax anyway.
Well, I also think that, and we can discuss it when they give the presentation, but I also
Yeah.
think that most large tracts, are in agriculture or forestry anyway. So that's, you know, I think looking at, if you have 6 acre or 5 acres, and it's a 2 acre lot, and that, and the other 3 has been, given, you know, donated, development rights to the land trust, but I don't know how many of those even exist.
It's not many,
So we can discuss that at the,
but that's a good question.
yeah.
No change since our last meeting for Investment Portfolio Oversight Committee. Economic Development did meet last night. I wasn't able to attend, but I do know that they spent a good amount of the meeting looking at our new Southbury app. I just emailed it to you guys if you want to take a look. It's not done, but there's enough done to see what the potential is. It does focus a lot on our parks. There's a tab for lodging and restaurants, restaurant tab being empty at this point, but really good information about our parks, maps, trails, tab for fishing. So I think it's a pretty neat little tourism type thing, which I think we certainly need. So that's exciting. Of course, they're eager to know when we're gonna have the EDC director in. And that's it for that. On the town-owned property study, have we done anything about the phase 1 environmental?
No, we have not.
Okay.
Get a hold of me tomorrow.
Okay,
That-
that's it for me.
Strategic plan.
Oh, the strategic plan, sorry. Yes, Jen asked me to do that one. I was at that meeting. We had updates from the different members. Obviously, the affordable housing group put out their white paper. I think you guys have all seen it. I thought it was excellent personally because it does make that definition and distinction between what affordable housing is and what low-income housing is, because they're two very different things. And affordable housing is what the state requires us to have a plan for. People may or may not be aware, there's already Section 8 taking place in our town. Not much of it, frankly. But as a realtor, I can tell you, if somebody calls my office and says, do you handle Section 8? We say, absolutely, because if anybody in my office says no, we can get fined $40,000. So while it's not common in our town, it is possible. Actually, our family received checks from the state once from one of our tenants. Pretty seamless process, it was no big deal, but again, that is not the same as affordable housing. So I think that was a very well thought out. And the other white papers that will be forthcoming from the rest of the subcategories are going to be off that template, is basically what was discussed the other night. So they are moving forward with communications and gathering of information on all of the topics right now.
And they have the vacancy that they're still wanting to fill for the alternate position.
This is true. There is a vacant alternate position, so if anybody knows anybody, please have them reach out to the First Selectman's office.
Okay. Jennifer?
Where's the love?
Oh! Jason, I underlined you too. I'm sorry.
I'll be brief, all right? LEPC did not meet. Library met last week. What's their normal, like, annual meeting. They look at their bylaws, they approve officers. Shirley Michaels is the chairman again. They didn't change any of their officers. There's gonna be a volunteer luncheon on October 25th. There's a donation day coming up for the Friends for their sale on October 19th. The summer reading program, they talked about that. It was a big success. I don't know if I got my numbers right, but we logged like 12,000 hours of reading from like almost 1,000 kids and stuff, so it's pretty good. And the website's coming along, they're working on that, and we all received what was a topic of discussion at the meeting, a memo from Shirley Thorson outlining the steps she took when the request came in with respect to the grant and the reasons why it wasn't doable at this time. So that's it.
Jennifer?
Thank you. Planning Commission met Tuesday night, and there is going to be, they approved a storage building that's going to go up over at Sacred Heart Church. They've scheduled a public hearing for 61 Peter Road. The situation with the gas stations is now set for October 15th at 7 PM. Let's see, Palm
What's
Rock
the date
District,
of that, Jennifer, sorry?
I'm so sorry, October 15th
Okay,
at 7 PM
thanks.
in this room. Palm Park District Department of Health Director Neil Lustig did a presentation on wells and water, very informative. I should ask him to get a copy of us, to all of us, actually, I will do that. There were several 824 referrals from this board to planning, and they approved them to increase the acreage in the Berkshire Estates that's currently owned by the town. The guardrail study, we've already discussed the moratorium they were requesting. I thought it was a broader moratorium, but I might have gotten that wrong. Then they discussed the Christmas tree location. I'm pretty sure they didn't come up with a definitive place for the Christmas tree, but there will be a Christmas tree somewhere in town. They did talk about this parking lot here, and so I didn't know. They added something to the agenda, and then they delayed on that. So then apparently they talked a little bit about affordable housing, but I was not present for that. Sorry, so I don't have anything to report on that. Local Prevention Council meets next Tuesday. I will go to that. And the Strategic Plan Commission, Justin just did. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
Parks and Rec has not met since our last, neither has EMS. Region 15 had their first meeting of the new school year on September 9th. Big part of the time was focused on summer project updates. Some were, things like they redid the floors at the high school gyms, which look beautiful. There's a new school store at the high school for the administration's really focused on improving school spirit in the school, and you could see it. Removal of some of the old portables at RMS, and I think at GES. And to me, what's really exciting of all the updates is, and if you've been by Rochambeau right here, you've seen it, 2 solar projects that the district has begun. One that is well underway at Rochambeau, and another that is happening at, I think it's at, I'm not sure where is it, the second one is, I think it's at Memorial.
There's a whole bunch of things that came.
But it's just, it's this, they're real, I just think it's really important, especially if, if we're talking about putting, about leaving this place better and saving money, as we look towards the next generation. I think looking at solar, is great. I'm thrilled that the region's doing it. I'd like us to revisit that again, soon. I think that's something that we've dropped the ball on in terms of not, walking away from that. When we first came in 3.5, almost 4 years ago, we were talking about that a little bit, the plans at the transfer station. Things have changed certainly, but I think we should revisit solar for the town buildings.
It'll be interesting to see what.
To see what's
they
changed
saw.
and what's out there, because it's an opportunity missed right now.
Yeah, we
And,
haven't had a
but I'm
chance.
glad that our kids are getting to experience and see that, so. Next meeting is on I think it's the 23rd, for Region 15. Also, one thing I do want to say that's important, because I forgot it, that, the high school has a unified sports program, that I'm not sure if anyone of you've heard about, but the Pomperac High School Unified Sports Program has been nationally recognized by ESPN in the Special Olympics as one of only 34 schools in the nation to demonstrate 10 standards of inclusion, and will be awarded a recognition as being a banner school. And this is for those with some form of disability, being allowed to play sports. It's a tremendous program. If you ever get a chance and you hear that there's a game taking place, I recommend heading over to check one out. It's pretty amazing. That's it.
Okay. Any other business?
Did anybody go to Leaps of Faith?
Yes, I did.
How was it?
They were
Sorry. You finished that, but I want
No, go
to
ahead.
finish the EMS thing we were going to talk about here. The town plan.
EMS.
Remember?
plan
You
by-
told me to
Okay.
do it in my report
Boston.
instead of
By
adding
Tim.
it. So you
So,
can
yes, I did go to Leaps of Faith. I stopped in, I was in the middle, in between, some stuff on the farm, and stopped in, and it was going very well. A lot of people out there, they were very happy, and, the gate was open, and went pretty well, so, they're thrilled. They had their bike ride also. So, yeah, it was good to see, and everybody was.
It was nice to see that letter, and to be thanking us.
Yeah.
I just think it's, hopefully it's the beginning of being able to provide access to the town as a whole at some point to
They were in
a
and
road
out,
park.
and, it all worked.
So just revisit, just on the EMS for everybody, Tim Baldwin emailed me this morning, he's coming to the finish line. He had been waiting for some information that he finally got to finish up the town EMS plan. He expects to have it done soon. I've asked him, I said, you know, I really want us as a group to have that plan completed before whatever comes next. And he assured me that he thinks that he'll be able to get it to us so we can take action, hopefully, you know, hopefully next month, so.
Okay, any other business? And any other motion to adjourn?
I'll make that.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and it's carried, thank you.
45 minutes, that's like a record for the last few
It's
months.
not the.
No.
It's not